Alright, I've done this a lot of times with many takes now, and I'm getting kind of frustrated with it. This is our video blog. We're doing... I keep pointing the wrong way. 52 books in 52 weeks, meaning a book a week. This week's book is The Beekeeper's Apprentice, which you already know. It's a Sherlock Holmes novel, and I find some things really interesting about it. So far, and most importantly, I find she's had some really interesting commentary on culture and on life. There's a point where the main character goes and she's been volunteering at these wounded soldier camps out in the country where she is, and so one day she goes and she reads a letter that one of these soldiers' wives sent to them, and then the soldier dies later that day. And then she comes back, she's all fired up, really angry about it. She goes to Sherlock Holmes, she's like, "We are brilliant, we're smart people, what are we doing here? We should be ending this war. Don't we have something we can do? Isn't there anything we can do?" And he stops her and he says, "What we're going to do is we're going to stay here, we're going to continue to grow, we're going to continue to learn. So when this war is over, win or lose, we'll be here to help rebuild, help put things back together. Because that is the only way we'll find any semblance of normality. We'll have value that way, and we'll add to the value of people's lives that way." I thought it was kind of interesting. I believe in a philosophy very similar. It's kind of a philosophy of preparedness. We prepare ourselves now for the things that are going to come. And over the next few years, it's going to continue to get rougher. It's going to continue to get more difficult. And as we prepare ourselves, we'll be ready for it. So I think the principle of preparedness is one that I've drawn out of the book, and I think it's a really valuable thing to share. It's also really interesting to me. Okay, so there's one more thing I want to talk about in the book, narrative-wise, and then I want to talk about a writing thing that she's doing that I find interesting. So also she mentions, as she's in college, that she's studying Judaism and she's studying mathematics, this finger's over here, and that those two things are not necessarily disconnected. There's a lot of overlap and a lot of value in between them. And so I think that's one thing we find when we're in higher education, is that all the things that we're learning, all of that information, becomes more and more connected the more that we learn about it, and it connects through us. So when I was studying English, I would find ways to apply the idea of literary criticism, or the idea of like really attacking something and digging into it and pulling it apart and finding out the pieces. I applied that to visual design, and I was able to pull apart visual design and see what they were doing. Really quick, I'm actually going to pull this up. It's going to take a minute, and I don't edit these videos, and I'm sorry about that. I'm not apologizing. Not sorry. Not sorry. Let me see if I can pull this up really quick. There we go. That was actually pretty easy. Okay, so you guys see this here, right? Just did a quick little Google search. I got to put it over there for you guys to see it. I realize that now. Did a Google search for this really quick. Went and saw this movie with my wife. It's okay. It's not great, I'm not going to lie. But in the visual design, because I've trained myself to pull it apart and look at it, I noticed here that we have a ... ... ... ... ... ... ... which in Morse code is SOS, because the whole thing is about, it's a disaster film, right? And they're trying to subtly hint that. So there's kind of this covert tone of it's a disaster movie, but then we have the overt tone through like the whites and the balance and the mirroring of their faces that says there's like, it is a romance, you know? Sorry, wasn't prepared or planning on doing this, but this poster is trying to tell us the two things the movie is about and try to draw both of those audiences at the same time. Additionally, we have the E's without the back on them, with this new futuristic, like, we don't need lines kind of thing, like, we can etch it all in one shot. Even that one has to be drawn out a little bit. Okay, so don't edit these videos. You guys are going to love me blabbing. Basically, I analyze things like this because of my dual study, and similarly, what Laurie King is talking about is that her character is doing something similar. Share in the comments some things that you've done that are hybrids of your fields of study and what you've learned because of that, what you've been able to add and contribute because of your hybrid fields of study. One last thing I want to talk about from a writing standpoint, it's really interesting that Laurie King has been she uses the storytelling and the narrator to distance the reader from the narrative and draw the reader closer, at least through the portions that I've read so far, to draw the reader closer to the narrator and distance them from the narrative. I'm feeling like it's about to change, but what that gave us in the early part of the book is a really strong connection to this character, an ability to feel and see inside of her. And since she is supposed to be like a young Sherlock Holmes, what the author's trying to do is give us a window into Sherlock Holmes' mindset and feeling and understanding of the world. That's also why we have things like her talking about World War I, talking about current events and pulling those things together that way. I find it really interesting. Anyway, actually I wanted to talk about how she's doing it too. It's mostly about telling, like, having her narrator tell things achronologically. So she talks about the narrator's aunt earlier and separates that information out. And that kind of breaks the narrative but pulls us closer to the narrator. Anyway, I'm really interested to see what she does with it, but I thought it was a really cool technique and something that you could use if you're a writer. Okay, video's gone long, and it's not edited. Comment if you want to know, like if you want to give me some direction on what you want to hear, any sort of that sort of stuff. Obviously I'm running out of words. I'll see you guys tomorrow.